Well, do you have any questions, any comments before? Did I call your name? What was your name? Tay? Okay. What's your last name, Tay? A? H? Soraya. Okay. Hi. Well, do you have any questions or comments before we talk about things? If you could say your name first and then your question, please. Janae.
So, anything that we talk about in class, will it be on assignments or anything?
Why, did you want to go to sleep? No. Should you take notes? No. Should you read books? No. Should you listen? No. It's funny when, you watch Scarface, for example, or a movie that you enjoy. You walk into the theater without any notes, without the desire to memorize the scenes. And yet, if the movie is interesting enough, it just sticks. I no longer have the time to watch movies, but all the movies that I've watched go back maybe 10, 15, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. There was something very interesting about those movies, at least for me. And so they just stuck with me. If you're forced to write something, it means it's not really that interesting for you. And even though you may take notes, even though you may read those notes, you will forget them. They'll have no value. Yeah. Even if you were to, I think, examine your own memories of some of the things you've experienced, whether it's positive or negative, the ones that have been stuck to you are the ones that have been intense, memorable, attractive, whether again for the positive or the negative reasons. So if the class is uninteresting, don't take notes. It's not going to do you much. Yeah. And curiosity doesn't mean anything, and inspiration doesn't mean anything. So just relax, have a good time if you can. Yeah.
So what's your name?
Amir?
Get your name.
Amir. Amir.
Amir?
Amir. Amir. It's like you go home, you take a shower, you want to see how you look, you stand before a...
Amir. So, would you prefer your first name or your last name?
Doesn't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah. There is a poem by Rumi, Mara mapors ke che nami, bahallaga ke tu khani.
Say it again.
It just says, like, whatever you want to call me, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyone else? No one? Yeah.
My name is Rochelle.
Rochelle. Rochelle? Rochelle. Okay.
So, yeah.
It used to be interesting at some point for me. It no longer is. So.
When's your birthday?
In the Middle East, we didn't have Social Security. We didn't have birthdays. So our parents had no choice but to make something up. Yeah, we didn't have birth certificates. So when the country modernized, everybody was forced to have a birth certificate. So my parents, as far as I know, at least that's the story they gave me, is that they scrambled around looking for dates and days and months. So when I was in Davis, I was pulled over by a police officer. This was like 40 years ago. And I was cuffed because I had like 5 different birth dates in their data bank. So I don't know if it's in July or August or January or whatever. So, I mean, I may be like only 25.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Do you feel 35?
No. I mean, once in a while in your imagination, you feel, very young and you realize your body betrays you. It's kind of like some of us in this class who have some age on us. You do things like 20-year-olds, and then you pay the price later on. So, you know. Anyone else? Nothing? Elijah.
Yes. What is the meaning of your name?
Iran did not allow any parents to name their kid just Amir. It needed to have a middle name, like Amir Hussein, or Amir Ali, or Amir Muhammad, or Amir Muhammad, right? My parents were lucky that they just named me Amir without a middle name. It means prince. That's what the name means.
Second part of that, do you believe that people are meant to live up to the names they're given at birth?
So when I was in Sacramento, living in Davis, taking the bus towards Sacramento, where I worked at Church's Fried Chicken for a few months, there was a black guy who was sitting next to me, and he looks at me and says, "You're from the Middle East?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "What's your name?" I said, "My name is Amir." He says, "Well, my name used to be so-and-so, but now I go by Muhammad. Have you found your name?" He asked me. But I was only like 17 and a half, and the question seemed a little strange to me. I didn't really much think about it. I think parents have a very unique position in life because you walk into a relationship, i.e. a marriage, with a great amount of hope and desire, but life has a tendency of snatching all those things away because life is about politics. I mean, making money is tough. Pretending to enjoy your job when you have a crummy boss is tough. Relationships are filled with conflict from the moment you wake up to the time you go to bed. Okay? And so you have a lot of unfulfilled dreams as parents. I mean, for those of you in this class who may not have a relationship with your parents, I assure you that's not the way things turned out initially for them. When they first heard that they're going to be a dad or a mom, they had a tremendous amount of hopes and desires. But they're usually short-lived. That's just the way things are for us human beings. And so one of the things that parents try to do is they try to give us a name that is profound, that has depth. I mean, Elijah. That's incredible name. It goes all the way back to the Old Testament. Who the hell can live up to that name? But despite how you may feel about your parents, your mom, your dad probably sat together. They said, okay, you know what? I've never been a dad before. I've never been a mom before, but I'm going to love this kid and I'm going to do the best I can for this kid without really knowing the complexities of life at that stage. The best they can do is give you a name that inspires them initially. So they stamp you with Elijah. Can you live up to that name? Probably not. It's just too much. Because life gets busy and you have to be engaged in life and you have to be political in life if you want to succeed and you want to prosper. I mean, school is no fun. Writing essays is no fun. And being a rat chasing after a grade is no fun. Everything is about betraying your own conscience, who you are, what you want to do, because you need the money, because you need the grade. I think the nice thing about us is just before you and I die, your last breath would be filled with, the release of a good amount of tension. You'll accept your life just the way it is. And you say, I've done the best I could. And kind of like the movie V for Vendetta, you say, it's time for me to go meet my maker. And then you go peacefully. But from up to that point, it's continuous struggle. I mean, it's like the Lion King, the movie. You have a great father. And then the people closest to you betray you. Man az bigan agan hargiz nana alam ke ba man har chi kard an ashana kard. that the people who will hurt you, harm you, the most intensely and profoundly are the closest ones to you. Okay? And so, because again, as we talked about it last night, we don't enjoy pain too much. Like Simba, you run away. You run away from the past. You run away from pain. Abi, hello. And so, something happens, you are reminded, but just being reminded is not enough. Anyone who's been an alcoholic or has had any addiction will tell you. Are you inspired to make changes? Absolutely. How long do inspirations last? If you're lucky, maybe a day. If you're lucky. And then you go back to the old life because it's a life it's a life that's comfortable. You really have to come to this dark place and you have to sit in it for a long time until a hand comes down. If you've seen the movie The Matrix, like when he's going to be taken to Nebuchadnezzar, this chain comes down. It's like the arms over the hands of God and pulls him up to save him. It's at the lowest place in your life. And then once you realize that you can't change by yourself on your own because it's too difficult, you have to go against like many years of habits, wrong thinking, the feelings that you have that have now turned into emotions, the emotions that have now turned into trauma. And you just smell of it, And so you enter a support system, AA, or any center, And those people are there to remind you. Make sure you never forget. And just in case you don't show up, they'll call you, they'll harass you. They're like Mormons, always knocking on your door, making sure you don't forget Jesus, And if you are lucky after like 10, 15, 20 years with many relapses, you'll eventually triumph. You'll succeed. And then lo and behold, one day you get a call, someone says to you, hey, Elijah, listen, we're opening up this new center. You've been with us for like 2 decades. You want to guide this center now? The people? I said, I don't think I'm ready. And the person says, you're ready. And now, you're the kind of the holder of this light for all the people who are now entering the center. You've been there, you've done that. Maybe now you could say you can live up to your name. Yeah. Anyone else? John? Yeah.
So I was watching this documentary about how bees and ants develop socialism. They did this by secreting chemical signals. Sort of related to that's how we
So usually when people ask me questions, I only focus on the words that I enjoy. The rest of it I just dismiss because it just takes too much energy on my part. The other part of it has to do with the fact that I don't really think people understand what they're asking. So it's a waste of time to sit back and ask, what exactly do you mean by that? It takes a long time to actually understand the questions that people ask, of themselves or of other people. I don't know much about bees and birds or rabbits and what they do late at night. Oh, you guys got that? I thought that was funny. I'm sorry. Yeah. There are 2 parts to us, and I don't really know how it's made, or how it's formed, how it is that we are wired in such a way. And it may be part of the way that we've been socialized. I don't really know. There is a part of us that really enjoys life. And there's a part of us that really is disgusted by life. Okay? And there is a part of you that enjoys sex. There's a part of you that says, I enjoy sex, but I want sex to come with a good amount of meaning. In other words, sex by itself is not enough. You want meaning that comes with sex. And meaning gives sex value. Okay? And the meaning that you inject into sex, what it does, it creates attachment. It creates jealousy. I mean, these are things that are just organic to us. Okay? Now, I don't claim to have understood your question, but let me just say to you this way. There is this particular insect, salmon fish. Salmon fish has a very, 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 very interesting life. And it begins its life as a tiny little egg under a rock somewhere. Then the force of the water pushes it down. And by the time it gets to the river or the ocean or the sea, it becomes a quacking fish. It's flying around, making friends, having sex with other fish, buying a house, going to Costco. This is what the salmon does. At a certain point, and I don't know why this happens, at a certain point, the salmon looks around and says, I don't like this place. I mean, it's like you're married, it's beautiful, there is nothing wrong with your relationship. One morning you wake up and you say, I don't like my life. Your wife or your companion has not transgressed, they haven't cheated, it hasn't been abusive. Everything is fine. It's a very stable, peaceful environment. And yet, you kind of feel like a stranger in a strange land. And what happens is, it seems that the salmon is condemned by its own wiring. Like its mind begins to do this assault on its own psyche. This is not your home. And so goes to his parents and says, I don't know why, but I feel as if this is not my home. And the parents, like most of us, who are parents, and the parents care and love us, they say, you should be grateful. You should be thankful for all the gifts that God or life has bestowed upon you. Stop opening your mouth and talking this nonsense. Be thankful. And you try to, because your parents have this ability to make you feel guilty for who and what you are and how you feel. And you try to read books, you try to read the Bible, you try to be thankful, but it's something intuitive. Something from your gut says, this is simply not where you belong. And so, for the first time, the salmon comes to realize he's got no father, he's got no mother. He doesn't know why these questions are coming up, he doesn't know why he feels the way that he feels, but it doesn't make sense to him. And he tries to kind of push the questions away like the Russian novelist Leo Tolstoy, but the questions refuse to go away. I mean, once there is this crack in this dam, that there is just something flawed about you, about your life, even though your life from the outside looks really, really good. I mean, it's something like all of us in this class feel. You stand in front of the mirror and you're a very attractive human being. That's what the mirror reflects back to you. And you look at yourself and you say, I just feel so ugly. And then the salmon goes to his friends, wants to validate the feelings. But the friends say, we have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You have a great relationship, great marriage, great kids, great job. You have a great amount of money. Why do you complain all the time? Maybe you should seek a therapist. And the salmon, in fact, does. At a certain point, the salmon comes to realize that what he feels is authentic. It's not socially manufactured. He's not lying to himself, He's actually very honest. This is how I feel. This life does not belong to me. I no longer fit this particular skin. And at that point, something happens to the salmon. No longer cares about his life. And he follows his intuition. And at this time, what happens is the salmon goes against everything that life is about. This class is about you making sure you're physically here, making sure you participate, making sure you do the assignments. At a certain point, you look at me and you say, you know what? I didn't sign up for this class for a grade. I came here to understand. I really want to understand this stuff. Okay? I refuse to write essays because I don't really know what I'm thinking about. I don't even know the nature of my own thoughts. And you go against the academic system, and you go against my authority, and you're more than willing to earn an F, but you won't betray yourself. You won't betray your own conscience. And that's what the salmon does. So if the water is going this way, the salmon goes this way. And this usually happens at the worst time of the year, which is the spring. The bears are out. They're out of hibernation. They're hungry. So out of the 1,000 salmons that are like flying, 900 of them are devoured, eaten by the bear. If you survive. Now, they have no idea where they're going. And that's one of the things about the spiritual quest. If, for example, it doesn't even have to be spiritual. If you've been married been in a relationship for 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years, and all of a sudden you wake up and you say, I don't want to be here. Something about you says, there is nothing wrong with your relationship. This other part of you says, I don't really care. What are you going to do being alone? I don't really care. What are you going to do being homeless? I don't really care. All you know is that you just don't want to be in that particular space anymore. And you realize that even though you may not be a Christian, even though you may not be religious at all, for the first time you understand that saying in the gospel, which is, what benefit is there for man to lose his own soul? Gain the whole world but lose his own soul. You have a wife, you have kids, you got parents, you got a job, you got a house, but none of those things mean anything to you. This antenna about you, like the bees, they just come up and you follow your intuition. What you do is you reach the very place where you were once an egg. You lay some eggs and then you die. Anyone else?
Just like my question was,
Bees? No.
it's like they're just robots, basically.
The what?
They're just robots that just do whatever the capitalist tells them.
No, bees produce honey. Bees know how to vomit really, really well. Bees understand what flower is. They also understand what a nectar is. Bees are also, you have to understand animals, any living organism besides the human being, they function instinctually, organically, naturally. There is nothing natural about us. After the age of 2, it's finished. A couple of spankings from your parents, some bluey, some porn, you're done. Anyone else? Monique, is that you?
Yeah.
Of course.
Coming back to your class, you say a lot of things I agree with. I don't know. I always come out wanting there to be is there anything you're hopeful about? Is there that's always that I just come back to. I didn't write any of the essays in your last class or anything. Well, I did. I wrote most of them. I just never turned them in because I would just say the same thing at the end of them. Which is just trying to be hopeful when every question you pose makes me do all of this very negatively.
Do you like me?
I think you're very interesting.
Okay. Imagine I'm single. And imagine I'm 50, not 62. And imagine that you're what, 19? Okay, you're legal. So, they can go out, no? You're going to have a good amount of hope in this relationship. I can give you things that no 20, 30, 40-year-old can offer you. You know what you want as a woman? Stability. I have that. I don't go through mood swings anymore. I do, but not as much. Money I have, a house I have, car I have. I am stable. I come from a solid background. That is what I can give you, and that is what you want. Now, you may not know this now, But in a couple of years, your body will scream for a child. Now, I know you're young. You're going to say, oh no, I hate kids, like one of those hippies. Fine. But at a certain point, your body will scream. Now, what is it that a woman wants when she wants to get pregnant and have children? Stability. A house. 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom. They want a good man around. That's what you will want. That's what I can give you. Now, because I can give you all those things, you can move into this relationship with a good amount of fantasies, hopes, dreams. The problem is, I can't have any hopes and dreams in you. I am like 3 times your age. I have all the things that you want from me. I have tasted them. I know what the conclusion is. When you talk about hopes and dreams, you need to understand they are meant for the young, not those who've experienced. Look, you see Elijah here? Every time he goes to Lucky on Montclair, he looks behind him. He looks to his sides. Montclair is predominantly white. He is black. He is cautious. He's been touched. He has wings, but those wings no longer fly. He knows the politics. Now, the only thing that can happen to him once in a while, he says, man, this white person was great. But he's not going to walk into Lucky's thinking, hoping, fantasizing that people are compassionate and decent and honest. Why? Well, because he's been there. He's been touched. He's been contaminated. As you age and as you experience, you become contaminated. Now, your first relationship, romantic one, you went in it with a good amount of hopes and dreams. It's love. You'd never had love before. Now you have it. You dream about marrying the guy, having kids with the guy, going to Yosemite with this guy. Just wait 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks. If he's not abusive, life will impose its abuse. It's called boredom. You will try to fix it. It's not fixable. Boredom is part of life. And then friction will appear. And then love will go away and you'll simply become a human being with all these emotions that you don't really want to have. And then you'll dump him. And then you'll recover. Hopefully it won't be that traumatic so you won't need therapy. And then after recovery, you'll go on a date again. But this time you won't give 100% of yourself. You'll give 75%. By the time you get to your 4th or 5th relationship, you'll probably only give 10%. Now someone may come to you and say, Monique, what happened to your hopes? What happened to your dreams? The only thing you say is, I lived life. Life doesn't allow dreams and hopes. One of the reasons why we gravitate towards people like Moses or Jesus, even though Jesus is a hippie, Muhammad, Confucius, the Buddha, is that these are realistic people. They tell you exactly how life is and we don't like it. There is a story that comes to us from the Greek tradition. There are 2 brothers. One is Prometheus and one is Epimetheus. And Epimetheus, I think, is about to get married to a woman named Pandora. And so Zeus, not desiring human beings to be happy ever, gives her this gift, Pandora's box, that some of in this class have heard. Now, there is something about Pandora that is poisonous. It's really great, but it's also very toxic. She's curious. Curious. You know, you have a boyfriend and you see him write things in his journal and then he hides it in places you can't really know or discover, like under the mat. And so one day when he's out, I said, huh. Now you have a great relationship and you have all these fantasies about your relationship, but your boyfriend isn't there. So you lift the mattress, you take out the journal, and then you read the diaries of this wicked man. He's been with 5 men, 5 women, 2 horses, 3 donkeys, 1 cat, and half a dog. And then you say to yourself, really? Then you throw up. Not because you're pregnant, you just throw up. And then your man comes home. What's wrong with you? And you smack this journal right in front of him. And that's what Pandora does. Pandora becomes curious as to what lives inside this box. The box opens, and all the evils you can imagine come out. The last living organism that's about to come up, roam around freely, it's called hope. And the moment it wants to come up, the lid shuts. Human beings should live with a little hope, but 90% reality. Anyone else before we... Vane? Yeah.
You talk about a lot of focus. I don't know. It sounds like you had your own experience. I believe, but is there any? There's no inclination you have that a person can survive the hopelessness and try to survive and still like be able to prosper even at old age and still hope, happiness, joy.
They can. You have to understand that in the 1920s and 30s, there was a Great Depression. People survived. We had functioning alcoholics. Okay. In Iran, Persia, we don't have a word for depression. We don't have a word for trauma. If you look at the poetry of Mexico, if you look at the poetry of India, if you look at the poetry of Asia, what you realize is there is no mention of happiness. What they do say is زمن بشنوی پیرآموزگار مکن تکیه بر گردش روزگار که این منزل درد و جای غم است در این دامگه شادمانی کم است. The moment you are born into life, it's filled with struggle. Not happiness, but struggle. Happiness is an invention of the 18th century and after. It's what they call the age of reason or enlightenment. And there's a good reason. Look, for the longest time in our human history, life was not a place to be happy. Life was a veil of tears. Life was tough. Having money was tough. Putting food on the table was tough. Everything was tough. Getting a toothache would eventually kill you. Everything about us was primitive. 18th century comes about, something really amazing happens. And we'll talk about that tonight. For the first time, you have Costco. For the first time, you don't need to do rain dance. You can actually know the seasons, plan things, make food. You have factories, you have cars, you have New York, you have Chicago, which means that you don't have to wait till you die to be happy. If you don't like Oakland because Oakland is a tiny village that's dead, everybody goes to sleep at 8 p.m., go to New York. Lots of bars, lots of brothels. You can make money, you can be happy, you can run into Kim Kardashian. And what you realize is that for the first time in our human history, you could actually be happy down here. This concept that human beings are meant to be happy is only about maybe 150 years old. That's all. And the word happiness, it comes from the word hap. It means nowhere. It means nothing. I don't know if you live at home with both of your parents, and I don't know if once in a while you complain about your boyfriend, but if your parents have been married for like 20, 30, 40 years, every time you complain about your romantic relationship to your mom, she'll just laugh at you. First, because she doesn't really know what love is. You know, if you've watched the movie Fiddler on the Roof, any of you in this class? So there's a scene where his daughter goes to him and says, well, the father has arranged this marriage. His daughter is 20, the man she's about to marry is like 98. Okay, well, 50 or 60. And when he breaks the news to her, she says, I'm not going to marry him. Now, this is like Orthodox Jewish family. You don't go against the wishes of your parents. And the young woman says, no, I'm not going to marry this old man. I'm in love. And the father doesn't really know what love is. What is love? Dad, I'm in love. What is love? You know, it's these feelings. What kind of feelings are they? Dad, you're just far too stupid. I'm in love. And so this old man goes to his wife and says, well, woman, do you love me? And the woman says, I make breakfast for you, wash your underwear, wash your shirt, I clean the house, I cook, I clean. If that's not love, I don't know what love is. And the guy says, well, I know you do all those things, but do you love me? And again, she says, I wash your underwear, I do this, I do that. So you have two aspects of life. One is traditional, one is modern. Modern don't last. This romantic kind of love that you and I are talking about. And we'll talk about romantic love, hopefully tonight in some details. Traditional love is about responsibility and obligation. No one gives a shit about how you feel about anything. Romantic love, you are the very center of the universe. It's all about you. And after a while, people are just going to get sick and tired of you talking about you all the time. The trick is to be happy in misery. That's all. And it's something, again, we'll talk about when we get to the Epic of Gilgamesh, when we get close to the concept of death. How you have to come to a place of acceptance, and you have to go through 5 or 6 different stages, and that's where you'll find happiness. You'll also encounter this weird version of happiness when we encounter the book of Job. It's in the Old Testament, perhaps the oldest book of the Old Testament. Good luck. Anyone else? Sorry. Mackay. Okay.
Have you read like all like the Bibles?
You mean the Gospels?
Yeah.
Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John?
Or I meant like different.
Oh. No. They're boring. Yeah, you gotta wing it. You know, you read a line here, a line there, and then you Google the stuff. You know, when you would like to go to the doctors, you know, you say, doctor, I have a migraine headache, and they Google the stuff. That's what you gotta do. Anyone else? Yeah, Matt?
Did you still have enough to do?
I got it from the same place, yes. I used to teach at Sierra College. Rockland, Roseville was about 10 minutes away. And most of my students worked here and there. And so whenever I would go to places, I would just get free things. Yeah. Yeah.
I got a question about pain and uncomfortability. So, this isn't my first time breaking my leg. I broke it in the exact same place twice now. And the first time I did it, I was like it is what it is. I'm just gonna keep skateboarding. I don't care. The second time, it's been a year of not being able to walk, and it's kind of forced me to be more comfortable just not having the ability to do something that I've done every single day of my life for the last 25 years. And like I feel like it's making me not happy necessarily, but more just content with not having as much in society as everyone else does.
Whenever you cultivate or you do an act over and over and over again, what you do is you create a habit. Habits can be good, habits can be bad. Smoking too much can create an addiction that's going to be costly, short memory loss, all those things. There is also another kind of addiction, which is like, let's just say you go home and read the Bible every night. That's a good addiction to have. Okay? Now, when you talk about pain, the thing that you need to understand about human beings is that it's something that I like to do, which is to kind of layer the human being in different parts. There is a physical component to you. So there is a pain that is only related to your physical body. Okay? Let's say you and I go out and we have a relationship and now emotions begin to flare. And then you walk out of this relationship. My body is healthy, but emotionally I'm broken. So I have an emotional pain. Okay? Now, it may be that you're trying to write a really, really good essay for this class, but intellectually, you're just not there yet. You lack the proper words, proper information, the eloquence of expression, okay? Now you have intellectual pain. Now they're all connected. Whatever the pain may be, if, for example, your heart is broken, there's a good chance you're going to keep your body in your room and you're going to turn off your lights. And you're going to cry. So emotions are going to impact your physical body. Just in case you have an intellectual pain, like you're trying to understand a passage, or you're trying to understand what it is that your mom wants from you, okay? Whatever it is that your mom said to you, you need to understand it, but whatever she said to you also impacted you on an emotional level. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to take your sorry physical body to places where you can find answers to your intellectual problem. And once you find solution to your intellectual problem, your emotions will also be addressed. And then your body will be addressed. One of the things that pain does, it occupies almost all of your brain space. Right now, you're not a slave. Right now, you're completely free. You can think about 1,001 different things. But just in case you and I get into a love relationship and I walk away from your life, the only thing that you will think about is me. That's the only thing. Your brain space has no space for this class, for essays, for your job, for your girlfriend, boyfriend, parents. None of those things matter. You're completely attached to me. I own you. Okay? And then there is a spiritual pain. That is very, very different because it has nothing to do with your physical body and your physical life. It has nothing to do with all the memories you have by going around talking to people, your past, your history, or your intellect. Okay? Then there is this psychological pain. Psychological pain has to do with the traumas. Not all of us have them. Okay? Some people have these experiences that just go inside them and stay inside them and they won't come out. They're like cancer. And those are really, really tough to get out. So when you speak about pain, it depends what kind of pain you're talking about. And if you go back to our conversation last night, you could either have someone delicately create pain inside you. Okay? My heart isn't working. I surrender myself to a doctor. He cuts my chest open, does a few things, sews it back together. Okay? It's a controlled pain. And he tells me, do A, B, C, D for about 2, 3, 4, 5 months, and you'll be good as new. The other, maybe I'm walking around the lake, someone just puts a knife in my chest. That's also pain. My chest is open, but it's not controlled. I'm bleeding and I'll eventually die. It's always better to give yourself to someone who knows. Let them create the pain for you. So there are levels to it, you know. Anyone else before we, Soraya?
Okay, so I have a question. So if there's really like no hope and no happiness, or however you're wording it, what do you feel like our purpose is?
I don't know. One of the things that, again, is an invention of the 18th century and after is the following. Let me just create a story for you, okay? There are two Sarayas. Saraya number one. You're born, there is your mom, there is your dad. You know who to love, you know who to hang out with, you know who to cry to when there is pain, you know who to go to when you are in need of anything, right? And you have a very, very stable foundation. You know who to love. And it's intuitive and it's organic. The second Saraya. You're born, there is no mom, there is no dad. At a certain point, you say to yourself, who am I supposed to love? And someone says, love yourself. Kind of like the Justin Bieber song, go love yourself. Okay. So what you have for us is that the first Saraya had a very, very meaningful environment. That meaningful environment gave her purpose, identity, the emotions that she enjoys, the people she enjoys hanging out with. You don't need meaning. Your life is filled with meaning. The second Saraya is a woman abandoned, orphaned, in the middle of nowhere. That particular person needs to read lots of books, needs to go to a lot of therapy, and eventually needs to embrace the fact that she's all alone and she needs to find a way to make peace with herself and the emotions that live inside her. And I say this for the following reason. If we didn't have a Sigmund Freud 500 years ago, we didn't have a Karl Marx 500 years ago, we didn't have any therapist 200, 300, 400 years ago. You know why? Because life for us was meaningful. That meaning was given to us by the Bible, by the church, by the culture. You know, it's like you live in a tiny village in Louisiana, and you have, like, the entire street is your neighbor, and they're your friends. Then you have this ridiculous idea, you know what, I think I'm going to go to California and make a new life for myself. Oh, you have anybody here? No, you have nobody here. Are you going to feel lonely? Absolutely. Are you going to feel sad and depressed? Yes. Are you going to be angry for making such a stupid decision? Yes. From the 19th century afterwards, our culture does not give us anything meaningful. Which means that you are the only person on this planet who has to go on this quest to find yourself a relationship that's meaningful, a job that's meaningful, ways to spend money that's meaningful, and looking yourself in the mirror and finding meaning there. You have to do everything on your own because the culture is no help. I mean, 60% of American population suffering from depression, that's no small number. Hope is really good. You just need to place it in the right place. That's all. You know, if it's 2 a.m. and you're just thirsty and you want to drive into a 7-Eleven and there are 50 people with baseball bats, well, you have to be stupid to say, I'm going to be hopeful that they're not going to hurt me. A reasonable person is going to say, you know what, fuck hope. Those are criminals over there. I'm just going to drive an extra 50 miles to get some drinks. Now that is wisdom. Anyone else? Yeah,
You don't have to, it's fine.
go ahead.
I mean, okay, well, do you think it was better then? You keep referencing, like, from before the 18th century, whatever, do you think it was better because they were given contentment? Like, you have a purpose in life predetermined for you, whatever, right? Like, you have the culture, you have whatever religion, and whatever place you live in, they're giving you purpose, and you're not to question it, but you'll be happy with that, or more happy, more content, whatever. Do you think it's better that way, even if it's, like, sort of a lie? Like, you know, like, I don't know, there's people benefiting off of those still, like, this you could find now in the more modern times, you can truly find your own purpose, but
No, you can't.
I mean, some people make it.
No, they can't.
Nobody?
No,
No?
no.
So you think
Zero. It's back into the negative. Are there exceptions to the rule? Yes. You know, it's like saying, I want to be the next Steve Jobs. You know, when I first started Laney, my classes were filled with athletes. Football players. They sucked, all of them. You know, what are you doing with yourself? 49ers. Oh, okay. I don't really need to take school seriously because 49ers. In the past 20 years, I've had maybe 3 of them. C.J. Anderson one, picked up by Broncos. But the rest, you know, is it true that some people will get picked up by some basketball, NBA, or football? Absolutely. But the majority, 99.9, are just left with this hope that's empty. Can you be the next Steve Jobs? Well, it's a 1 in a million chance. Do you want to take it? Look, people like Dostoevsky, Friedrich Nietzsche, Søren Kierkegaard, Jean-Paul Sartre, Frantz Fanon, all these ridiculous people of privilege, the Buddha, Jesus. You know what's wrong with these people? Seek the kingdom of God within. Are you kidding? How many people leave their parents, leave their community, leave their religion, go into the desert, find God, come back and preach to us? Only one, Jesus, that's it. How many Malcolm X's do you find? How many Mike Tysons do you find? What they do for the rest of us is that they inspire us. But that inspiration is a dream. It's poison.
I would disagree.
Yes, end of it. Yeah, go ahead.
No. There's something.
What?
I mean, it's just.
Look,
the other one is
I don't know if you're going to be the next Beyonce. All I know is that right now, as things stand, okay, stay in school. Do the shitty classes. Get the crummy grades. Get your bachelor's. Get your master's. You'll be 23. Then you want to fuck your life up. Go fuck your life up. It's okay because when you come back, you still have a master's degree. But if you just like, you know, play around with life till you're like 30, 35, you're going to end up at Laney. I mean, I'll be dead by then. And there is nothing wrong with coming back at the age of 35. But you'll be filled with, your brain will not be as fertile. You know, you'll be old. You'll probably look ugly, you know, smelly and disgusting. Your life will be busy. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. But one of the things that young people don't understand is the value of time. I mean, you have this time, man. Use it wisely for just 5 years. Put yourself on pause for 5 years. 5 years, that's all. 5 years. Then you want to go be a hippie, go be a fucking hippie. Yes. I came to this class calm and peaceful. And I'm just kidding. Yeah.
I feel like if you're saying to get through it and go mess your life up after you grade or 9 years.
You won't mess up your life.
But even beyond all that, right? Like, at the end of the day, is there because life is so mean and at the end.
Life is what?
Life is so mean and it's so disastrous. You're gonna end up I feel like you're implying that you're gonna end up, generally like not very happy with where you are, except for like people like, I don't know, Steve Jobs and like that.
May I,
Yeah, sure.
thank you. There is a painter, American naturalist. His name is Thomas Cole. He has this 4 set of paintings. I first encountered them maybe 35, 40 years ago. And I called the library in Washington. They said they'll sell the prints, some fake prints, small ones, for about $25 each. So I got all 4 of them. It's called The Voyage of Life. And this is, I think, it's a very accurate description of how life unfolds for all of us in this class. The first painting is called Childhood. It's about this tiny little infant on a boat. The boat is filled, it's lush. It has flowers, it has lots of greens. There is an angel standing at the very front of this boat. This child is naked. There is no element of shame inside this child. It's okay for me to run around being naked, as most of our kids when they're young do. The kid is happy. One thing, and the water is calm, and the boat is intact. And one of the nice things about this child is that the child doesn't look back, because he can't. If he was to look back, he would see that he comes out of this cave. And inside the cave, it's dark. And the cave is rocky. Nothing grows on it. And the kid doesn't even look at the sky because it's cloudy and it's dark clouds. But the kid, because he doesn't know, he is happy. As long as you don't know, you will be happy. You have no choice in that. The child is happy, and the child is naked, and the child has no shame. Is ignorance bliss? Absolutely. But it doesn't last too long, because the painting moves to the second stage, which is youth. What is it that young people have? Dreams. And what comes with dreams? Arrogance. Every time you look at your mom and you say, "Mom, I know better." Youth and arrogance. Every time you ask your dad for a 20, not knowing where that money came from, what will you spend it on? Weed? Alcohol? Some party? Some stupid friends? Youth, arrogance. So you know what this kid does? Looks at this angel and says, "I have no need for you anymore. I can do this on my own." What the youth doesn't realize is that if you look at the river now, it's no longer a straight path. It's winding a little. But what comes with this youth is you have one leg ahead, your fist like this upwards. There is nothing I cannot do. My marriage will last. I will never be homeless. Love will never break me. I will forever be young. I'll be a musician, a football player, basketball player. I'll be great. Life can't touch me because this is my stage, as Shakespeare would say. Then comes a third painting. It's called manhood or adulthood. The waters are rough. You have control over nothing. His knees are broken. His hands are clenched together. He's praying. Next time life offers you an event that's troublesome, see what happens to your back. See what happens to your knees. See what happens to your hopes and dreams. And you don't have to wait to be 30. It happens when you assume that you're going to get an A in a class, it turned out to be a C or a D or an F. That you thought that this guy liked you. You went and said hello, and he looked at you and said, "Get away from me, you suck." You got fired from a job. Every time you have a regret, Every time life makes you angry, that's your knees bending. That's hope disappearing. And then comes the last painting. It's called Old Age. He no longer has any hair. He no longer stands. He sits. His beard is all gray. The water is calm. He has no more hope. He has no more ambitions. There's tiny openings in the cloud. The doves are coming down. It's time for him to go. But at last, he has embraced his life and accepted his life. Good and bad, doesn't matter. Now that is the journey that all of us take. Are you going to find happiness? Absolutely. Are you going to have dreams? Yes. You can have them while you are young, while you lack the experience, while you haven't been touched. You will have a great marriage the first year, maybe. You will be a great mom until you realize having children is one of the most frustrating and frightening experiences you will ever have. But will you have dreams about becoming a great mom? Yeah. Should you have them? Absolutely. Do you have the right to have them? Yeah. How long they're going to survive? Not very long. And when you do have children, and if you're still living in Oakland, you're going to come to some very, very awful conclusions. Am I going to send my kids to private school or public school? And then you begin to do some research. And then you're going to realize how corrupt politicians are and how crummy public school is. Then you say, you know what? I'm going to send my kid to a fucking private school. Then you look at your man, let's call him Johnny, a loser. You know how much private schools cost? 30, 40, 50,000, if you're lucky, by the time you have children. But because you chose the wrong man to have kids with, but you loved him, now you come to this grim conclusion. Love doesn't do much, really. Reality sets in. You've become old. Not physically old. You've just matured, and that's all it is. Nothing wrong with that. When you get to be my age, your hope is that when you go visit your doctor and say to your doctor, doctor, you know, my back, they'll give you a pill. Or maybe if your doctor is cute, she'll give you a massage. With your clothes off. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You can get 3 of them. Thank you, by the way.
Okay. See you tomorrow.
Tomorrow is good. Anyone else? This class is not meant to make you hopeless or get you depressed. It's just to make you think, that's all. This is Abi, by the way. Thank you, Abi. I used to teach a class at Sac State, this is in Sacramento, in the 1990s. She was a student. She was only like 17 and a half or 18. She looked much better. So anyone else before we, no one?
So is it still important to find hope in hopelessness? Like in a hopeless situation, we feel like everything is against you. Is it important to still believe that you can make it out?
I don't know if I can answer your question properly, but let me just tackle it this way. To just simplify things, there are, and this is a very crude way, like useless way of saying things, but I'll say it nevertheless. There are two kinds of personalities. You have you have the feelers and you have the thinkers. You have the passive personalities and you have the active personalities. You have the introverts and you have the extroverts. You have the Jesus and you have the Moses. Okay? In life, you will find two of them. Either a Jesus or a Moses. If you look at the philosophy of Moses, what you realize that he is profoundly hopeful. He is hopeful because he opens the sea, he rescues his people, and he gives them this hope that there is a promised land. Moses is about justice. Moses is about physical life. Moses is not hopeful about compassion. Moses values the time. Moses understands people go through difficult times. He does not forgive an eye for an eye. Moses is about justice, fairness. And the promised land, I'm not talking about the state of Israel or the Jews. I'm talking about the personality and the temperament of Moses himself. So in life, you have a Moses temperament, a personality, that are all about just life. They're very active. Then there is Jesus. Jesus is not hopeful about life. Life is a den of thieves. Life is about the prodigal son. That people keep wasting and wasting and wasting and wasting until they fall. And then they go back to God. Jesus is not about happiness down here. There are no promised lands down here. The only land that you can find happiness is the kingdom of God within. There is no money in it, no house in it, no marriage in it, no kids in it. I have not come here to bring peace, but to make sure that you oppose your father, you oppose your mother, you oppose your friends. Naked you're born, naked you're gonna go. The only thing worth saving is your soul. Now that is hopelessness. But the promise that he has is if you can find the kingdom of God. But for you to focus on the kingdom of God means that you can't give a shit about other people. No money doesn't matter. No job doesn't matter. No marriage doesn't matter. None of those things matter. So in life again, you find two people. One gives you hope, salvation, which lives inside you. And that's tough. Because you have to go against your physical body. Everything your body demands, you gotta trash it. That's the path of Jesus. Moses, on the other hand, he understands what it means to be a human being. He's been in love. He knows what hunger does to you. He knows what it means when you're oppressed. He's all about freedom, physical freedom. He's like a Karl Marx. He doesn't care like a Mahatma Gandhi Swaraj. Know yourself. No. So if you happen to like the philosophy of Moses, there's a good chance you're going to take your physical life very seriously. If on the other hand, your temperament, your personality, the way you're wired is geared more towards the Jesus type, you're going to be more passive. You know, in other words, you may have a companion, she may look at you and say, Elijah, I love you. And out of respect, you say, I love you too. But you only say that because you don't want to hurt her. But you also know if she was to leave you, you'll be hurt for a week. But you don't really care. Tonight I was going to give you a brief history of the past 700 years. But mostly the women in this class keep interrupting me. I'm just kidding. Yes, go ahead. I'm sorry? No, I was just only, look, I have a weird sense of humor. Please don't take it personally. Look, I think these ideas are heavy, and I think temperamentally I am just a heavy person. And to release some of the tension, I just say like stupid things. And I don't mean them to be offensive, and I don't mean them to rub anybody the wrong way. Just in case it does, seek help. So go ahead. Say what?
Like everything that you're saying, I'm trying to understand. I don't understand. Like, what do you believe in? Do you think that there's one truth? Do you think that there is like? I mean, it sounds like you're going fine to Moses and Jesus, which.
No, the task is to be a little bit of both. Slap stupid people, forgive those who are not so stupid. Look, your job here is not to try to understand anything. And I mean that sincerely. There are a couple of reasons. First, I come from a different culture. I've been exposed to different things. I am 3 times your age. This has been my stage for the past 35 years. I worked with a teacher for about a decade before he passed a couple years ago due to cancer. Okay. The only thing that I think our conversation will do for the people in this room, you'll get some feelings, some negative, some positive. Those feelings you will try to understand, because that's what the intellect does. Like a Messiah tries to come down to figure things out. It's the mechanic in us. You want to figure out, what the hell is this guy talking about? How do I understand this, process this? But you can't. You can't because you don't have the proper tools. It's like building a house. If you want to get to a conclusion, it's like building a house. You need concrete, you need rebars, you need 2x4s, you need OSBs, you need drywall, you need all sorts of things. You don't have them yet. And partly it's because you're young, the other part is you're not reflective, the other part is you don't live in a culture that's poetic, philosophical, or reflective. Your best chances are to get excited, to be inspired, to try to understand what you want. Then you go through confusion. And then you'll talk about your confusion at home with your parents. Okay? And then there's a mechanism inside all of us, which is at a certain point, your body just shuts down and you will forget. You'll wake up in the morning, you'll have some ideas, some thoughts, dim thoughts about what we talked about, and then you just forget the whole thing completely. That's all. Understanding is much later in life. Yeah. Rochelle, yes.
If you were to relive this life again, given your experiences, things that you've gone through in life, is there anything you would do over again, or would you even live out here?
No, I've never liked the Bay Area. I resigned from Laney in 2007. I went to a different college, but I was dismissed after a semester because of just the way I am. It was a college surrounded by churches, Republicans, mostly Mormons and Jehovah's Witnesses.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they're not bad people, but also way back then I was young. My language was very foul. It was a good thing that I was fired.
Did you move somewhere else besides
Roseville.
Roseville?
Yeah, that's where my parents live. My brother and my sister live there, yeah. I go there almost every weekend.
Is it more subtle than the Bay Area to you?
More what?
Subtle?
Subtle?
Subtle country?
No, it's when we had the car wash there, population was 32,000. Now it's over almost like 300,000 people. It's very clean, not very diverse, very safe. Look, when you ask someone, would you relive your life? If you're asking someone while they're going through a difficult time, the answer is no. Unless they happen to be profoundly mature where they're able to kind of transform suffering and pain into something very creative, okay? If you're asking me, who happens to be somewhat healthy and in a very privileged position in life, I don't really know how to answer that question. So, yeah. Yeah.
Are we going to get to any topics?
No.
I just feel like everybody just asking questions.
Well, the funny thing about the questions and the way we are wrestling with the questions is that you're going to encounter all of them once we get to like Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and Christianity and Judaism and Islam and all the other isms. This is basically a foreplay. You know what foreplay is? Yeah. It's like you get your mind kind of a little warmed up before you get to the heavy stuff. So you guys don't think about things the right way. I don't know why. Yeah, Matt.
It seems so serious. Like a lot of what you're talking about is very serious. It's Jesus this side, Moses this side, kind of like. Isn't there room to just laugh at the whole damn thing? Like just the ridiculousness of how it all is. Just kind of sit in the middle and laugh.
So there are a couple of things. Let's first of all talk about reflection, the ability to seriously think about something. Okay. You and I are in a relationship. We're having fun. We have money to go out and eat. And emotionally, we're somewhat compatible. Intellectually, we're also compatible. But in all relationships, there's always this power dynamic. And no two people love the same. One usually loves more. That's always the case. Okay. And because life is layered and because life is complicated, you and I are not going to live in this Garden of Eden forever. Conflicts are going to come up. You and I will get into a fight, into a disagreement that will eventually turn into a fight. I will slam the door shut. When I leave, you will experience pain. Pain will force you to think. Pain will force you to think seriously. Pain will cause reflection. Pain, you know what it does? It says, this is Matt, but now that Matt is in pain, Matt stands outside of Matt. And Matt begins to think about the relationship. Matt begins to think and observe and see why he said what he said to me. Whenever you think deeply, you have detached yourself from life. You're looking at life from the outside. Whenever you question your marriage, you're standing on the outside. Whenever you're questioning whether or not you should stay in this class or drop it, it means that at this point in moment, you're standing outside saying, I am bored. I don't like the way this guy looks or smells. I don't like the way this guy talks. You're no longer engaged. You're no longer part of the class. You're on the outside. The problem with life is you're going to find many moments where life pushes you out and you're forced to look in and you're not going to like what you see. Now, the problem with this class or philosophy in general or serious people is that they are our heroes. I love Malcolm X. I love Mahatma Gandhi. I like Jesus Christ. I like Moses and Muhammad and the Buddha. I like Dave Chappelle. And the problem with liking these people is they live outside of life, they look at life, they take notes on life, and they come back and tell me life is shit. Say, why? Because I've looked at life. Whenever you go to an AA center, and I only use AA center because when we had a car wash, one of them, we sold all of them except one. Across the street from us was an AA center. And the people used to come to us and we used to talk and just become, friends. Is it true that they laugh? Yeah. But if you look at the New Testament, the Jesus story in the Gospels, he doesn't find human life funny or humorous. He really finds it quite sad. Not once do you find in the Gospels Jesus laughing. Or look at the dialogues of Plato, his teacher Socrates, 2,000 pages, this big fat book. He doesn't laugh once. None of these people give us a belly laugh because life is serious. And the truth is, you only have fun in life in moments of forgetfulness, when you're not serious. Now, if I was to borrow from Friedrich Nietzsche, I would say the following. There are only two things you can do in life. You can either laugh or you can cry. And you laugh not because life is funny. You laugh because you simply don't want to cry. Now, there is another part to your question that I think it's interesting. When I was 18, one of our friends, his son was playing basketball and he died. And so they called me and they said, we need 5 people to go to the mortuary and wash the corpse. Can you be one of them? Sure. There comes a point where the grief and the sadness is so much that your body shuts down. You have no more tears to cry, and your body doesn't really have the capacity to be in a grieving mode. So you begin to tell jokes, sometimes raunchy jokes. And it's not because things are funny. And it's not because you're not grieving. It's the only way now, at this stage, you can express your sadness and your sorrow. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. So, yeah, you can be funny. And you can have a good time with life after you've paid your dues. It's what we call like makeup sex. You fight with your companion like 50 times a day. At a certain point, you look at it and say, I just don't have the energy to fight anymore. Let's just have sex. And she says, okay. And then you just have bad sex. Anyone else? Yeah.
Why does sex have to be bad?
Why does it have to be bad? Well, when we start talking about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is the oldest story given to us human beings, and we're going to talk about sex in great depth. We're going to talk about brothels. We're going to talk about temple prostitution. We're going to talk about sex with the body, or sex with the mind, or sex with the soul, or sex with all three together. We're going to talk about love, but we're going to talk about the various shades of love. The eros, the ludos, agape, and that which transcends all of them. So the point is, it's complicated. Anyone else? Nothing? Okay. You sure? Go ahead. Nothing? No one? Okay. So, what time is it before I start my ridiculous? It's okay? You guys are fine? We'll leave at 8:30, is that okay? It's not too long? Americans. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tell Muhammad I said. There was a movie with Robin Williams and Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. You guys remember the title of the movie? Robin Williams, Good Will Hunting. So, by the way, thank you for all this food. There's a scene where Robin Williams, the therapist and the psychology instructor, comes to realize that he doesn't really have very much time left with Matt Damon, this genius but troubled kid. And so when he walks in, Robin Williams stands up, holds him, and says, "It's not your fault. It's not your fault." He keeps telling him that, "It's not your fault." And Matt Damon, I don't know the name of the character he plays, breaks down, which is really difficult thing to do for people who have pushed their emotions down for such a long time. And the only way they can express their emotion is by pretending to be really, really tough, when in fact they're profoundly sensitive on the inside and they're easily broken. Matt Damon breaks down, of course. Robin Williams holds him, and after a few minutes says to him, "Go out there and live your life. Everything is fine about you." And I say that for the following reason. I don't know any of you in this classroom at all, but you and I are part of the American culture, and all of us in this class have the American psyche. We are not exempt from the number of people who are depressed, lonely, and miserable. And we are not exempt from people who have lots of hopes and dreams, and life really has only one thing to do with them. As Albert Camus, the Algerian philosopher, would say, life is there to make sure that our dreams and hopes are crushed and destroyed. Now, some of you may, in this class, blame yourself for the fact that you're depressed. Some of you may blame yourself for being hopeless, for having made all sorts of mistakes about your life, having lots of regrets. But I think, as Robin Williams would say, it's not your fault. They belong to a cultural current. It's like a tsunami coming your way. And you and I are nothing but twigs. And we stand no chance when this wave comes at us. We will break. So for the next few minutes, while I tell you this history, what you need to understand is the following. whatever you think you are, whoever you think you are, whatever you think has happened to you, whatever negative feelings and emotions and traumas you may have inside you, they are created by the culture in which you live. Do not fault yourself, but understand why these things are here. That's all. Okay?
So how do you go about understanding?
I will tell you. I mean, you can just only listen, and the problem with listening is that you can't listen to understand, as we said earlier. The other problem with listening is that you are only able to exercise selective hearing, that some things just jump at you and you grab them. Most things you let go, you won't even hear them. So just do the best you can. I don't really know if Jesus actually existed. All I know is that there are about 40 different gospels written by people we don't really know. And all these different gospels say different things about this particular fellow. But what I can tell you is that whether or not this man actually existed, he certainly made a profound impact on human history. His disciples waited and waited and waited for his return, but he didn't show up. And people who had memorized his sayings began to die and began to become forgetful. So they said, you know what? Maybe we should do what the Egyptians did. Maybe we should write this stuff down. And since Jesus is no longer here to embrace us, to protect us, maybe we should make a house made of stones and mortar and rebars. Make that into the body of Jesus. Let's call it the church. So around the 3rd or 4th century, something very interesting happened. The population of Christianity began to increase. The pagan tradition of the Roman Empire began to decline. There was a man like Trump many, many thousands of years ago. His name was Constantine. He realizes that he's losing power. And this new religion is advertising in such a nice way, and people are gravitating. He also begins to have all these dreams about Jesus, about the cross. And he says, okay, how do I protect my empire? How do I adopt the new religion? So, 400 years after the death of Jesus, he says, the Roman Empire now is a Christian empire. Now, what does it mean to be a Christian? It's not a difficult thing. Take yourself back 2,000 years ago. Who are you? You had wings. You lived in the Garden of Eden, embraced by the light. You walked with God. There was Adam and Eve. They did something. God didn't like what they did. They were ashamed. They were tossed out. You're not black. You're not white. You're not a man. You're not a woman. You are a fallen angel. End of story. Down here is not your home. Your task in life is not to make money, not to express vengeance. Your task was to figure out where your soul is and how you can get yourself back to God. You pray, you worship, you cry. You don't seek happiness down here. Because if you do, you'll be considered a Judas. You don't sell your soul for coins. Now, the nice thing about this particular Christian philosophy is the following. You are simply a winged angel fallen from grace. You don't seek happiness down here. You don't marry for happiness. You don't find a job that's an extension of your soul. Your emotions are religious. You forgive. You exercise compassion as much as you possibly can. You live in a communal setting. You're not gay. You're not trans. None of those things exist. As a woman, you're not a feminist. You are a mother. You don't cheat. You don't lie. Life, in as much as it's profoundly layered and complex, it's really simple. Nobody complains. No one cares about what you have to say about yourself. In fact, there is no word for I. I does not exist. You don't have personal emotions. You don't leave your parents. There are no nursing homes. You don't want to be forever young. In fact, you pray for death because that's when you meet your Maker. $2,000 years ago, no one suffered from the confusion that you and I suffer from today. No one suffered from loneliness. No one suffered from depression. The French philosopher Jean-Jacques Rousseau had argued that, you know what modern times has done to people? We all live lonely in crowds. We're all isolated. None of those things were the experiences of people 2,000 years ago. Because that was not their culture. And just in case you have issues, you take them to church. You don't blame Donald Trump. You don't blame Obama. You don't blame the white man or the brown man or the red man. You take everything to God and you blame everything on Satan. You have cancer, God wills it. Your wife died, God wills it. Your kid is stupid, God wills it. Around the 13th century, something very, very strange happened. It's kind of like the COVID virus that entered the planet. In the 13th century, it's what they called the Black Plague or Black Death. It came from the rats and it spread. Half the population of Europe died. If someone keeps telling you that you're stupid, eventually you're going to accept the fact that you are stupid. If one person dies, you say, okay, it's just one person. But when 70, 80 million people die, the priests die, the monks die, the nuns die, but the prostitutes, they prosper. And all of a sudden something happens to people. Is this the compassion of God? Is this just that people who sit in the church and pray every single day, they die, but the sinners stay alive? How is this fair? Is this really how we define God's compassion and mercy? And that's the first crack about the human psyche. For the first time, people begin to ask serious questions. What is the nature of God? Why is everybody dying? So just in case there are some atheists in this room, trace your philosophy of life. The genesis of your disbelief goes back to the 13th century. Your belief system is nothing but a social construct. A couple years pass by, and all of a sudden comes this man. His name is Galileo. What is it that you and I read in Genesis? God creates human beings, right? But not in the dog, not in the cat, not in the mouse, not in the donkey or the horse. Only in the human being does he breathe his spirit. Not even the woman, just the man. And he looks at them and says, go out there and have a good time. The earth is in fact, was created just for us. Do you know how special human beings feel themselves to be? Imagine some of you in this class, I'm sure you're in a relationship, and let's just say that you assume your companion loves you. I mean, really, really loves you. That you are the center of their universe. They cook for you and clean for you and think about you and feel about you. And whoever they are, whatever they are, they're just for you. And as you're going to work, you realize your companion's phone is just buzzing a little. And you look, and it says, John, love. So what the fuck? And you call your boss and you say, I'm not coming to work today. I think something's up. And you take this phone and you shove it into your companion's face. Who the hell is John? And he or she will break the news to you. I'm sorry, I know I love you, but I've been with John for the past 58 years. See, really? All this time I thought I was the center of your world, and you have deceived me? How are you gonna look at your marriage? How are you gonna look at yourself? What sort of emotions are you gonna have? You're gonna be pissed. All the money you spent, all the time you spent, whatever peace you had, out the window. Galileo comes forth and says, Earth is this tiny little dust in the middle of nowhere. Go back to Saraya's question. Does my existence have a purpose? Was I born for something? And Galileo would say, no, you're nothing. No one gives a shit about you. The earth is a tiny little speck of dust. It's just floating around. People come, people go. People are forgotten. You're just one of them. What about soul? You may not have any. What about God? Doesn't exist. So is there someone out there who cares for me? No. Now remember, for someone like Galileo being a scientist, he can live with what he has found. But I can't. Jean-Paul Sartre is okay with having an open relationship. Simone de Beauvoir, his companion, she also is okay with having an open relationship. But that's them. I can't do it. Now, Jean-Paul Sartre has talked so much about sex and having an open relationship. But it would be wrong of me to adopt his philosophy. It doesn't work for me. And that's one of the problems that you should have with people like Malcolm X, like Jesus Christ, like Galileo. Because they tell us things that we don't have the capacity for. I can't walk away from my life and pursue the dreams of Malcolm. I'm not made like him. And yet I am exposed to his perspective of life. I know that Romeo and Juliet is a fantasy. I've read the play 50,000 times, and I want my life to be a duplicate of that. You know why? Because as a human being, I desire beauty and perfection. And I want to come to life. And I want to be in love. And that's the problem with fantasies. I want to believe that God exists. And God looks down and says, Amir, I will take care of you. And when you die, I will hold you. Galileo comes forth and says, no, you're not going anywhere. Your life has no purpose. Live like a rat and die like a rat. Now, the Catholic Church was wise enough to put him under house arrest. There was a stupid guy some years ago. His name was Socrates. Some of you in this class may have heard of his name. He's like the fountainhead of Western philosophy. He had this charisma and magnetism that drove this 17-year-old kid named Plato to madness. Plato became his student and then wrote about his teacher, Socrates. And you know what Socrates tells us? He tells us the following. It's a tiny little phrase. The unexamined life is not worth living. That you as a human being, your task is really quite simple. Think. Use your head. Reflect. Examine. Go home and do that. And see what's going to happen to your life. You're going to ruin it. Examine how you spend your time. Examine your conversations. Examine what you're doing with your life. Examine what you have done with your life. And what you realize, the end result is torment. See, Socrates can go ahead and examine his life. Because he doesn't love his wife. He doesn't pay mortgage. He has no friends. The gods love him. I am not that fortunate. I need people. Socrates don't. I need money. Socrates doesn't. So beware of those who have the power to inspire us. Because inspiration will lead to your ruin. I mean, it's a great thing that we have come to realize that the earth is simply a speck of dust in the middle of nowhere. But what does it do for your religious faith? What does it do for your identity? For your purpose, for meaning, for belonging? Nothing. It ruins it. Now that is the second crack that happens to faith. Years pass by and there is this tiny little man in Germany whose name is Martin Luther. His father loves him. His father is a lawyer. He wants his son to follow in his footsteps. He wants his son to be a lawyer. He's actually to school, becoming a lawyer. On the way back, there is this incident. It frightens him. He thinks he's going to die. He kneels. He prays. And he says, "Spare my life. I don't want to die. And if I reach home safely, I won't be a lawyer anymore." Even though he had never seen Karl Marx, never met Karl Marx, because Marx was about 400 years after, Marx had believed that lawyers are parasites, these scumbags in society. So when Martin Luther reaches home, he looks at his father and says, A, B, C, D happened. I sat, I prayed, and I told God that if my life is spared, I will be a monk. And that's what he became. He became a monk. But he came to realize something really interesting about the Catholic Church, because by this time the church was profoundly powerful. I'm sorry, what was your name? Brandon?
Yes.
Last night, I mentioned to Brandon that if he was to bring me a few solar panels, I'll give him a couple of A's. He's in school. He wants to up his salary, maybe change his career. Hopefully, I'll be alive next semester. He can take a few more classes from me. He doesn't need to attend. He doesn't need to do any work. Because of the solar panels he had gifted me, I'll just keep giving him A's. What Martin Luther came to realize is that the Catholic Church is doing something really funny. We call it indulgence. Give me some money, and I'll take the sins that live inside your soul away. So when you die, you will not go to hell. Maybe purgatory, a place where your sins are cleansed or your soul is purged of sins, and then you'll enter paradise. And Martin Luther came to believe that, listen, the only person who is able to get rid of all the wrongs that live inside your soul is God. The church has no power. So he fights the Catholic Church, as Malcolm fights black Muslim Brotherhood, Elijah Muhammad. I mean, he begins to fight this huge industry. Now, the tragedy for the Catholic Church is the following. You have the birth of the printing press around the 15th century in Wittenberg, Germany. Means that your thoughts can now be on paper, and in 10 minutes you can have 1 million copies. So if before you had to handwrite them, copy them down, okay, and then give them to people, that would take like years. In 10 minutes, you had all these copies given to people. And now people begin to read the horrors of the Catholic Church. And now someone sits back and says, do I really want to be a Catholic? Do I really want to be religious? Should I follow the path of Martin Luther? Now, some of you in this class may take this stuff lightly, but imagine you've been married for like 20, 30 years, and then your spouse dies. Are you a husband? Are you a wife? Who are you? What do you do when your husband is no longer there? You don't cook for him anymore. You don't talk to him anymore. There is no one to talk to. What happens to you now? You're lost, you're confused. You need to understand that the confusion and the isolation and the depression that you and I feel today, it really has to do with all these figures that have come before us, asked difficult questions and no answers. I had a student here at Laney in 2004. His name was Chance. At least that's what he went by. I was teaching a summer course, Humanities 38 Ethics. He was this 18-year-old black kid. And there was also a couple, husband and a wife, who were once married but now divorced, now best friends. And one day this old man, African American, stands up and looks at Chance and says, "You're this 18-year-old young African American. You should dress better and talk better and do this better and do that better." And Chance simply sits back and listens and looks at this guy, this old man in his 60s, and says to him, "What am I supposed to hold on to? There is no Martin Luther. There is no Malcolm. There are Snoop Dogs and Little Waynes. But there are no icons. There are no idols. There are no heroes to be found. Who do I follow? What do I do?" He eventually transferred to UC Berkeley and a few years later committed suicide. Our desperate need for meaning, our desperate need for purpose, to belong, to believe in some goddamn thing out there. And it doesn't have to be real. I mean, for those of us in this class who have children or who have young nieces and nephews, and when it's like a Christmas time, Santa Claus, and Tooth Fairy and all those things, we want them to believe in those things, in the magic, because certainly life has no magic in it. Now, so remember, up to this point, you have a small crack created by the bubonic plague. You have a crack created by Galileo. You have a crack created by Martin Luther. Fast forward a little bit. Charles Darwin. Darwin is a young kid. He hates school. He wanted to become a priest, but he was a little slow. And he didn't like really priesthood. There is this ship that's gonna travel here and there, and they ask Darwin if he wants to go. He says yes. And he comes to realize something really interesting in his travels. He goes to Alaska and he finds these bears, and they're white, and they're fluffy. And then he finds himself in Yosemite, and he finds bears again, but they're brown and not as fluffy. And he says, well, they look like the same animal. They just look a little different. Why is that? Is it because God made them this way? And he begins to examine the climate. Alaska is cold. Alaska is rough. Take a brown bear, dump it in Alaska, it would freeze to death. Take the bear from Alaska, dump it in Yosemite, it would also die of heat stroke. And he comes to realize something really interesting. It seems that geography, climate, determines the sort of species it can create. And then inside every living organism, there is this genius. It will do its best to survive, not because of God. There is something inside all of us in this class. If ever you've had any dreams where you're falling from a cliff or a tall building, just before you hit the ground, you wake up. Our organism does not desire to see its own demise or death. You will wake up from this nightmare. You don't need God to create. Organisms have the intelligence to create and recreate themselves appropriately. Go home tonight, put a few potatoes in a plastic bag, tie the bag, put it under your bed. Eventually you will forget that you have done such a thing. Just wait, and wait, and wait. And after 2 or 3 weeks, you realize there are all these flies in your room. Your room will begin to smell. And then you want to figure out, where are these flies coming from? All the windows are shut. All the vents are shut. And then you remember, could it be the potatoes? And lo and behold, you bend over, look inside this bag, and there are millions of flies running around. Why? Because potato has living organisms or intelligence in it. One form of life is destroyed, another form of life is created. And you don't need God for that. Cut the lawn in your front yard. You don't need God to help it grow. It just grows on its own. I mean, consider this for a moment. That you don't need God in any of this stuff. For those of you who happen to be someone reflective, you don't need God to have children. You need sex. And God did not put sex inside us. Nature did. Nature protects what it creates. Why do you think the sexual drive is so intense and so powerful inside us? Because our organism demands survival. It is true that sex gives a lot of pleasure, but it's also true that we have it, and it's intense, and it's powerful, because nature has put this blind power inside us. You have sex, not because you love kids, not even because you love sex. You have sex because you can accidentally have kids. And all kids are accidents. No kid is an act of reflection by parents. At least not the first one. And if you do reflect about having children, you do so based on lots of fantasies. It's not because you know anything about parenthood. And when you have the second child, it's only because you want to make sure that the first one has some company. And the third, accident. Unless you happen to be a Mormon. That's a different story. That's just complete accident. Now, do you have any questions? Go ahead.
What do you think about Diogenes?
Diogenes is, this is off topic. Yeah. Diogenes? So, after the death of Socrates was crucified, very much like Jesus Christ, by the Greeks, the politicians namely. philosophy branches into three different areas. One area is called cynicism. Cynicism is this dark and gloomy way of looking at life. And so Diogenes happens to be the founder of the Cynic school. He was a homeless man, and even though he was gifted, he was profoundly reflective. He refused to live in society. He was called Diogenes the dog because he said that dogs are much more faithful than human beings and much more compassionate and much more forgiving. And it's something you also discover later on with Pavlov's dog, which is if you whistle to a dog that there is food 50,000 times, the dog will keep coming. It's because the dog loves you, the dog has faith in you, and the dog has this hope that will never diminish, which is whenever you whistle, it's a call towards food. You can't do that to human beings. Eventually, human beings will lose their trust in you and faith in you, and they will seek revenge. Okay? Diogenes lived in a bathtub, outside. He was visited by this man named Alexander the Great because he had heard so much about this particular dark, gloomy philosopher. He said, I want to go figure out who this man is, have a chat with him. And when he goes and finds out where he lives and what he is and who he is and all that, Diogenes looks at this king, Alexander the Great, and says, you need to remove yourself from my path because you're blocking the sun. And I came here to be in the light and not to be covered by darkness. And so Alexander the Great goes back home and he's asked, well, did you run into Diogenes? What do you think of him? And so that's who he is. He got into a fight with Plato. He had found Plato to be somewhat arrogant as a philosopher. And Plato had found Diogenes to be arrogant in a different way. But that's what philosophers do. They just fight one another. If you're interested, maybe I can just give you this simple version of what cynicism is all about. Believe in the idea that you're born in sin. When you truly believe in that idea and have faith in that idea, what you will discover, if you're intellectually honest, is that if you're born in sin, all you can do in this life is make mistakes. So whenever your girlfriend looks at you and says, Micah, that was stupid. Well, I was born in sin. What else do you expect? That there is nothing that you can do that can be right. Which in many ways is true. Because when you examine human beings, a baby elephant can walk after like 2 minutes. A tiny little chick can fly after like, I don't know, a day or so. Human beings are the only animals on this planet who needs to be taken care of for such a long time, physically. And then they need to be taken care of intellectually, but because they are stubborn and because of the 7 deadly sins, namely pride, which creates autonomy and individuality, we don't receive advice well. So you want to kind of go out there and make your own life and do your own things. And then by the time you figure out that you're wrong, it's a little too late. And so that's what we mean by cynicism, that most of the things that human beings do and pursue and want are basically flawed. What time is it? 8:21? All right. Let me stop there. And when we come back tomorrow, we can talk about a few other things. Do you have any, maybe we can do a question and then go home? Any questions? I'm sorry? Monique? Diogenes.
I just said what you think about it.
I like him. I like anything that's dark. You know what they say, once you go dark, you can't go back. Oh, man. Okay, sorry, that was a bad joke. Huh? I think so, yes. Tomorrow is good. See you tomorrow.